I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Lauren and I had been together for about 5 years before we got engaged, and I genuinely thought we had something solid. She always seemed a little bitchy, yeah, but I figured that was just her personality, sharp-tongued, quick to dismiss, but underneath it all she was affectionate and caring. Or at least I thought she was. I mean, I was planning our wedding, dreaming about our future, thinking everything was perfect. We had an apartment, a stable job, social circles, normal life stuff. Nothing extraordinary, but enough for me to believe she was faithful, honest, and committed. Or so I believed until a few months ago. Lately, though, she'd been acting weird. At first, I just chalked it up to stress. Work had been hectic for her. She's a marketing executive at some big firm, and she's always been ambitious. But then I started noticing little things. She'd come home late more often than usual, smelling different, almost like she'd been somewhere else. The excuses were always the same, just a late meeting or client dinner. I didn't want to push her, so I let it slide, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She also started hiding her phone more. Whenever I'd walk into the room, she'd quickly hide her screen or change the subject. I thought maybe she was just annoyed by my nosiness, but now I realized she was probably hiding something. The final straw was when I saw her phone one night, left on the kitchen table while she was in the bathroom. I normally wouldn't snoop, but something about the way she'd been acting lately made me suspicious. So I glanced at her messages, and that's when I saw her talking to someone named Alex. It was just a quick snippet, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and a flirty emoji. At first I convinced myself maybe it was just a friend or a coworker, but then I saw more messages pop up. They were always late at night, full of innuendos, and she kept calling him babe and honey in her texts. My stomach dropped to my feet. I felt a cold rush of shock and betrayal. How could she do this? How long has this been going on? Was it just sex, or was there more? All the doubts flooded in, and I couldn't sleep that night. I just kept staring at her phone, trying to piece it all together. Finally, I decided I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know, especially not anymore. I waited until she was out at work the next day, then I took her phone and started digging through her messages. I wasn't proud of it. I'd never been a snooper before, and I hate that I felt like I had to invade her privacy. But I needed to know the truth. And what I found was worse than I could have imagined. Not only was she cheating on me, but she'd been lying about everything. She kept telling me how much she loved me, how committed she was, all while screwing around with her boss, a guy named Mark, who's a lot older than her and clearly just using her for some quick sex and power. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How many times had she lied to me? How many nights did she spend with him? And what about all those moments she told me she was working late or out with friends? Turns out she was meeting Mark. I found pics of them together at his place, her wearing outfits she didn't even wear around me, and text exchanges that were downright disgusting. I was furious, hurt, and confused all at once. I needed to see her, needed to hear her explain herself, or at least try to. I couldn't believe I'd been such a fool, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending anymore. My world was crashing down. I couldn't hold back the anger anymore. I knew I had to face her. I waited until she got home that evening, trying to keep myself calm, but inside I was a mess. My mind kept circling around the betrayal, the lies, the fact that she'd been cheating on me with her boss right before our wedding plans. I remember standing there, my fists clenched, feeling like a volcano about to erupt. When she finally walked through the door, her face lit up with that typical bitchy smirk, the one she always wore when she thought she was in control. "Hey babe," she said, dropping her purse on the counter. "What's up?" I looked at her, my chest tight. I felt like I was about to explode, but I forced myself to stay composed. I pulled out her phone and placed it on the table, facing her. "We need to talk," I said, voice ice cold. "I saw your messages, your little affair with Mark. How long has this been going on?" Her eyes widened for a moment, then she rolled her eyes and scoffed. "Oh, come on, John, seriously. You're jumping to conclusions. It's just sex, forget about it." She crossed her arms, leaning back against the counter, a smug look on her face. "You're overreacting." That's when the floodgates opened. "Overreacting? Are you kidding me? I found pictures of you at his place with his stupid shirt off, telling him how much you missed him. How long has this been going on?" "Months, since before our engagement." She scoffed again, a bitter sneer curling on her lips. "You're crazy. You think I'd do that to you. You're just jealous because I'm better than you. Mark's just someone I have fun with. It doesn't mean anything." I felt a sick combination of rage and heartbreak. How could she be so callous? How could she lie to my face? Excuse it as if it was nothing. I couldn't believe I'd trusted her, believed every word she told me about how committed she was. For months I was planning the wedding, thinking about our future, and meanwhile she was screwing her boss. And she had the nerve to call me jealous, like I was the one in the wrong. I told her, "You don't get to call me jealous when I see you in bed with another man. You lied to me for months. You've been lying to everyone. How many times did you cheat? How many lies are involved in this? Because I swear I'm done with the bullshit. I want the truth." She looked furious now, her face flushed. "It's none of your business," she spat. "You're just insecure. Mark's better than you anyway." That was the moment I realized I was dealing with a bitch who didn't even care about me, who just wanted to keep her secret. She didn't even bother to deny it outright. Just dismissed me with her usual snarky attitude, like I was some inconvenience to her. That night I was a mess. I couldn't sleep, my mind racing. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and stupid for ever trusting her. I wanted to scream, cry, break something. Instead, I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I got to this point. How did I miss all those signs? Was I ever really the one she loved? Or was I just a stopgap before she moved on to something better? Her lies kept echoing in my head. How she was so in love, how I was the one, and now I knew those words were just bullshit. She was a manipulative bitch, and I'd been her fool. I'd built a life with her, and she'd been sneaking around behind my back, lying every step of the way. I felt so empty, so broken. The trust I once had in her was shattered, and I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to look at her the same way again. I knew I had to come up with a plan, but right now, all I could feel was this burning need for justice, for some kind of revenge. The next few days were a whirlwind. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and all I kept doing was replaying everything I found out. More I thought about it, the angrier I got. I started to realize she'd been playing me all along, pretending to be the perfect wife, the loving partner, while secretly screwing her boss. How long had she been lying? Did she ever really love me? Or was I just some placeholder in her so-called perfect life? That thought cut deep. I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd just been using me the whole time. I knew I couldn't just walk away without doing something. I needed to make her pay. Not just for the betrayal, but for the fact that she'd lied to me for so long, made me think I was crazy, made me doubt myself. That's when I started planning my revenge. I didn't want to just dump her and walk away. I wanted to make sure she felt the pain she'd caused me. That meant I had to be smart, patient, and ruthless. I needed her to see that I wasn't some weak guy she could walk all over. First, I gathered all the evidence I could find, screenshots, pictures, the texts. I backed everything up and kept it in a secure folder. Then I started talking to some of her colleagues, friends, people I knew she'd confided in. I wanted to know more about Mark, what kind of guy he really was, what his intentions might be. I also paid close attention to her schedule, her habits. I wanted to know exactly when she was most vulnerable and when I could strike. My plan was simple but effective. I'd confront her publicly, make her feel embarrassed and humiliated, and then I'd find a way to make her pay for all the lies. I knew she was manipulative, so I had to be careful. I started spreading rumors at her work, nothing too dirty but enough to make her bosses and colleagues start questioning her integrity. I also kept tabs on her social media. She was stupid enough to post some photos with Mark, clearly trying to show everyone they were just friends. I saved those, too, so I'd have something to hold over her head later. Meanwhile, I didn't tell anyone at first. I wanted to keep it quiet, let her slip up on her own. I'd wait for the right moment to expose her, to make her realize that I knew everything. It wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about reclaiming my dignity. I started acting cold around her, ignoring her more, giving her the silent treatment. She started to get suspicious, asking questions, but I played it cool. Inside, I was already plotting my final move. One night, I followed her after work. She went to that fancy bar she liked, expecting a night out with Mark or her friends. Instead, I showed up quietly in the shadows, watching her meet up with Mark. They were unmistakable, laughing, kissing, touching like they didn't care who saw. I snapped a few pictures, knowing this was the proof I needed. Seeing her like that, so carefree and confident with him, made me feel a strange mix of relief and rage. She was finally caught, and I was ready to make her pay for all the lies. My mind was already racing, thinking of the perfect way to confront her, to expose her for the manipulative, selfish bitch she'd been. I knew this wasn't over, not yet. And I was just getting started. The next morning, I woke up with a clear plan in mind. I felt a strange sense of calm, mixed with pure fury. I knew I'd gather everything I needed: photos, screenshots, the whole 9 yards, and then I'd confront her face to face. I wasn't going to do some messy, emotional outburst. No, I wanted her to see that I was in control, that I had all the power now. This wasn't just about breaking her. It was about making sure she understood she'd been caught, and that I wasn't going to be some pushover anymore. I started by calling her office pretending to be a client, just to throw her off guard. I asked about her schedule, her meetings, and her interactions with Mark. I knew her boss well enough. He was a typical corporate asshole, arrogant, full of himself, the kind of guy who thought he could do whatever he wanted. And now I had proof that he was getting what he wanted from her, too. I saved all the messages from their secret conversations, the photos of her sneaking out, the times she'd stayed out late without answering my calls. I had everything. Once I had all my evidence, I crafted a message to her, an anonymous one. I told her I knew everything, that I had seen her with Mark, and that I was going to expose her. If she didn't come clean, part of me wanted her to feel the fear, to realize she was no longer in control. I wanted her to know she'd been caught red-handed. I sent the message and waited. It was like holding my breath, waiting for the bomb to drop. She called me later that day, frantic, accusing me of hacking her phone, of spying, of something crazy. I kept my cool and told her I knew exactly what she'd been doing, that I had proof. She started to lie, of course, blaming it on stress, saying Mark was just a mentor, that she never meant to hurt me, that I was overthinking everything. But I didn't buy it. I told her I wasn't interested in her excuses anymore. Her words sounded hollow, and her voice trembled when she realized I was serious. That night, I decided I'd go to her workplace with the evidence. I wanted everyone to see what kind of person she really was, how she'd lied, cheated, and betrayed me. I didn't care anymore about making her look good or saving face. I wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences. I showed up unannounced, with a USB stick full of all her texts, pictures, and messages. I approached her boss, Mark, and made it clear I had everything on her. The look on her face when I did that was priceless: shock, panic, and then outright fury. She tried to deny everything in front of her colleagues, but I just stood there, calm and collected. I told her she'd been caught cheating on me with her boss, that I knew about the affair, and that I had proof. Her bitchy attitude cracked for a moment. She was furious, screaming, lying, anything to deny the truth, but I had her cornered. I saw her trying to manipulate everyone around her, but it was too late for that. The damage was done. I saw her realize her carefully constructed facade was collapsing. In that moment, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I knew I'd finally gotten what I wanted: justice, truth, some sense of closure. But the pain of betrayal still lingered. I'd loved her, trusted her, and now I saw her for exactly what she was: a selfish, manipulative woman who'd lied to me for months, used me, and then thrown me aside. I didn't want her to get away with it, not without paying a price. I wasn't just angry, I was determined to make her regret every single lie, every betrayal. And that's exactly what I'd do. After exposing her at her workplace, I thought I'd feel some kind of relief or closure, but honestly, it just left me numb. Seeing her squirm, watching her try to deny everything in front of her colleagues, it was satisfying in a twisted way, but it also made me realize how much I had been played. She was a master manipulator, and now I was just the fool she used to cover her tracks. I never imagined I'd get to this point, so betrayed, so humiliated, and yet part of me felt strangely liberated. I had finally faced the truth, and I had taken control of my own story. That evening, I went home alone. The apartment was eerily quiet without her. I sat on the couch, staring at the living room wall, trying to process what had happened. I felt a deep ache inside, anger, sadness, and a profound sense of loss. I'd loved her, really loved her, and now I was left with nothing but questions. Was she ever really faithful? Did she ever love me, or was I just convenient? Every moment I spent with her replayed in my mind, and I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust again. Over the next few days, I made my decision. I wasn't going to pretend everything was okay or try to fix what was broken. I finally saw her for what she was, a selfish, lying woman who only cared about herself. I realized I deserved more, someone who was honest, loyal, and worth my time. I started packing up my things, slowly removing the photos and mementos from the walls, trying to detach myself emotionally. It wasn't easy, but I knew holding onto her would only keep me trapped in that painful cycle. I also made a point to cut off all contact. I blocked her number, her social media, everything. I didn't want to hear her excuses or see her try to manipulate me again. I figured the best revenge was walking away, proving that I was stronger than her lies. As I packed, I thought about the future. Maybe I'd be alone for a while, maybe I'd take some time to heal, but I knew I would. Let her destroy me. I'd rebuild step by step, and I'd learn from this nightmare. One thing I've realized through all this is that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who you really are. I used to be the kind of guy who trusted too easily, who believed in love and honesty. Now I see the world differently. I see that some people are just selfish, that some betrayals are so profound they change you forever. But I also see that I have the strength to move on, to pick myself up from the rubble. It's not easy, and I still think about her sometimes, wonder how she could do this and then lie so effortlessly. But I know I'll be okay. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but I also know that I can't change the past. All I want now is to focus on myself, find happiness again, trust again, and maybe someday love again. I've learned a hard lesson about honesty, loyalty, and the importance of listening to your gut. If anyone out there is going through something similar, I'd say, don't ignore the red flags, trust yourself. And when you finally find out the truth, don't be afraid to take control of your life, even if it hurts. Because in the end, you're the only one who can truly rebuild what's broken. Now that everything's out in the open, I've had some time to reflect, more than I ever wanted to. Honestly, I never thought I'd be the guy to go through something like this, but here I am. The betrayal changed me, no doubt about it. I used to believe in love and trust, in the idea that someone could be faithful and real. Turns out, some people are just selfish and good at hiding who they really are. Lauren was one of those people. She knew exactly how to manipulate, how to lie, and how to keep her secrets hidden until she thought she was safe. What hurts the most isn't just that she cheated, it's the lies. The way she lied to my face, told me she loved me, then threw everything away for quick sex and power with her boss. I feel stupid now for trusting her, for believing her words when her actions screamed otherwise. But I guess that's part of the lesson. You can't always see the truth, especially when someone's good at hiding it. Still, I've come to accept that I was a fool, but I'm no longer that fool. I've started to rebuild my life. It's slow, painful even, but it's happening. I moved out of the apartment, changed my number, and cut ties with her entirely. I don't want to carry her betrayal around anymore. I've started working out again, trying to focus on myself. And I've realized that I deserve better. Someone who's honest, loyal, someone who won't lie and cheat behind my back. There's a strange sense of liberation in finally facing the truth. I don't have to pretend anymore. I don't have to wonder if I'm crazy or if she's telling the truth. I know now that I was just a stopgap for her, a placeholder she used until she got what she wanted from Mark. And that's a harsh reality to swallow, but it's also a relief. Now I know what kind of person she really is, and I can finally move on without the weight of her lies dragging me down. I've learned to trust myself more, to listen to my instincts, and to realize that sometimes love isn't enough to fix the broken parts of a relationship, not when there's deception and manipulation involved. I don't regret the time I spent with her, but I do regret trusting her blindly. If I could give advice to anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, it's this. Don't ignore the red flags. Don't let someone manipulate your feelings and get away with lying. When you finally find out the truth, face it head on. Don't be afraid to walk away. Sometimes the only way to truly heal is to start over, and that's okay. In the end, I'm grateful for the lesson. It's tough, it's painful, but it's made me stronger. I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. I'm moving forward, wiser, more cautious, and finally free from the chains of deception. And in the long run, I believe I'll find happiness again. Because I deserve it.